Amelia Earhart. I'm an aviator, which is another name for a pilot. I was born on July 24th, 1897, in America's heartland in Atchison, Kansas. I grew up with one sibling, a younger sibling named Grace Amelia Earhart, who was born 2 years later than me. Despite having one sister, no brothers, and living mainly with my mother because of my father's problems with alcohol, I became a tomboy, and I still am to this very day. I was homeschooled until the age of 12 by my mother and a governess. Later, I attended high school until I was the age of 18, 15. I then attended a girls' finishing school after I graduated, and then 2 years later, I left and enrolled at Columbia University. I left Columbia University after only a year. I didn't ride in my first plane until 1920, when I took my first flight with Frank Hawks. I had been watching and observing a stunt flying exhibition from an isolated area when this gentleman, Frank Hawks, approached me and he offered me a ride. As soon as I was a few hundred feet off the ground, I knew I had to fly. I started taking flying lessons with a female pilot, and in 1923, I was the 16th woman to be issued a pilot's license. I was ecstatic. By 1927, I had accumulated or flown nearly 500 hours of solo flying. In 1928, I took my biggest flight as a passenger. I was going to be the first woman passenger to fly across the Atlantic Ocean. We made it safe and sound, and when we got back, we were greeted with a ticker-tape parade and a reception at the White House with President Calvin Coolidge. I set many women's flying records like fastest flying speed, highest flying altitude, and the first woman to fly across many oceans like the Pacific. In 1932, I became the first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic Ocean. Then later that year, in August, I became the first woman to fly non-stop across the USA. I flew coast to coast from Los Angeles, California to New Jersey. About 3 years later, in 1935, I became the first woman to fly solo across the biggest ocean, the Pacific. It is a breathtaking sight seeing the beautiful scenery unfold beneath you while you're up flying in the skies. I will never forget what I saw on these flights. On June 1937, I started my second attempt at flying around the world. By July 2nd, 1937, after a stoppage at New Guinea, we were lost at seas. We couldn't understand the radio messages. My very last radio message I gave before we were swallowed by the dark seas sometime later was, "We must be on you, but cannot see you, but gas is running low. Have been unable to reach you by radio. We are flying at 1,000 feet. We are lost somewhere near the Nukumanu Islands and Howland Island, near Fiji."
Great job, Adrian. Do you guys have any questions for Adrian? Jackson, why did you pick her?
Because I thought not many people know about her, and I